Russia's unprovoked war of aggression in Ukraine continues to rage. Many are dying, infrastructure dying. But with President Trump now in office, all parties now seem to agree it is time for the violence to end. Donald Trump is giving Putin a deadline. Earlier, I sat down with an interview with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy to discuss that and much more. Take a look. I understand Ukraine's need for security guarantees. We can go back to the Minsk agreements in 2014 and 15, and though there are many other conditions, one is that Ukraine could not join NATO if Russia were to follow other terms. This seems to be coming down to a negotiation, a territorial dispute, and I'm not taking sides here, being made by Vladimir Putin, and about Ukraine's ability to join NATO. Is everything on the table for negotiations with you once Donald Trump? We saw Donald Trump's post to Vladimir Putin, and I'll get to that in a minute. It was very harsh. But on your end, is everything on the table?
Ця риторика президента Трампа, вона була
The rhetoric of President Trump, it wasn't simply severe, it was just and fair. And this is exactly what Putin is afraid of. He doesn't want strong Trump supporting Ukraine because it would be strong Ukraine. And the territorial integrity is what every country must respect. Even such country as China understands that you cannot interfere with territorial integrity, but he did it. And he wasn't stopped by the previous agreements, like Minsk agreements. He was saying that those were separatists, but they, in fact, were his men. Those agreements were instigated by him, and then he started the big invasion. And those agreements envisaged exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. And some of our men are in his captivity for 10 years now, more than 10 years. And that's it. So, speaking of a ceasefire, at that time, ceasefire did not work. And he understands. By the way, in those agreements, America was not involved. In the Normandy agreements, it was a mistake at the time of the U.S. administration at the time. If America took part in those talks, America would have forced Putin to achieve a just peace. But America wasn't involved there. And I'm very hopeful that President Trump will not allow for such an agreement to just be a piece of paper. We want him to be on the side of justice, on the side of Ukraine. So today, I'll tell you, if we look at what happened after the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russia, we have regained over 50% of the territory he initially took. And we would like to achieve a fair end to this war. We are not afraid. Russia is not that strong, but we don't want to lose more of our lives, men and women. We would, but we cannot recognize the occupation. That is our people, and that is our land, and our right. The right of our people is for those territories. We cannot legally recognize that occupation, but we prefer to resolve that diplomatically, not through a military fight. That's what we want. But Putin doesn't want to put an end to this war. Speaking of us, what we want, we talked with President Trump about it.
I do believe that if President Trump were in office, as Putin was amassing troops on your border, there was a window of opportunity for this to be stopped and to have a negotiated settlement. And I believe that likely would have happened. My fear for Ukraine, for your country, and you have fought valiantly, and I'm no fan of Vladimir Putin. I think he's evil, a murderer. I think all of this was unnecessary. All of it could have been negotiated from the beginning, but we are where we are. And I would like Ukraine to remain a country and not have all of its infrastructure destroyed in all of this. The president did say about Vladimir Putin, he said the following, that their economy is failing. He said, settle this, stop this ridiculous war. It's only going to get worse. If we don't make a deal in soon, I'll have no other choice but to put high levels of tariffs, taxes, and sanctions on anything being sold by Russia to the U.S. and other participating countries. Let's get this war, which never should have started, if I were president, over with, make a deal, no more lives should be lost. I agree with President Trump. I don't want any more people to die in this war. That's why I'm asking if the president can put enough pressure on Vladimir Putin, and is there a negotiated deal on the table that is going to take some give and take? I would assume it will involve NATO. It'll involve your future defenses. It'll involve territorial claims that they have. Do you think that deal is achievable?
Я впевнений, якщо президент Трамп захоче, він зможе примусити Путіна.
President Trump has the will to force Putin to come to peace, he can do it. And if the U.S. considers pressure on Putin involving other countries, Global South and China, I'm sure that an agreement can be made. So they make that pressure as well, pressure on Putin, I'm sure. And I know that President Trump is not very happy about NATO. We talked with him about, but we need broader guarantees of security. If there are no joint guarantees, I believe that guarantees from Europe alone will never be enough. We talked about this before. The Europeans understand that without guarantees of security from the United States, from President Trump, it will not be enough. Putin is not afraid of Europe. Unfortunately, that is so. And so we need such guarantees of security. And we talked about the mistake that Ukraine made at the time back because of that pressure from the United States and the Russian Federation when we gave away the nuclear weapons we had in exchange for that Budapest memorandum, which gave us nothing. That Budapest memorandum was just a piece of paper, same as the Minsk agreements. That memorandum, nobody really gave us support. Such agreements may have not enough value.
You are probably not as willing as I am to criticize President Biden over his handling of all of this. But when we go back to the beginning of this conflict and Russia was amassing troops along your border, he was asked a question, what will your response be? And he said, well, it depends if it's a minor incursion or not a minor incursion. The next thing, I felt that President Biden was trying to control how you were fighting the war. I remember Poland offered you 28 MiGs, and he vetoed that. And then by the end of the war, he's providing the weaponry and hundreds of billions of U.S. tax dollars and allowing you to fire ballistic missiles into Russia, which resulted in Vladimir Putin saying any country that fires a ballistic missile into Russia, now we have the ability to fire a nuclear weapon back at them. I don't think that was helpful. Am I wrong?
I'm not quite sure. What you were saying did not really help.
Well, what I'm saying is, in the beginning, the negotiation should have started when Putin was building up troops along your border. And he was asked about it. And he said, well, it depends if it's a big incursion or a minor incursion. I think that was a window to get ahead of it. He missed it. Then Poland offered you MiGs so that you could fight an air war against Russia after the conflict started. And then by the end of this conflict, he's allowing you to fire ballistic missiles into Russia, which then altered their nuclear policy, which said if you do, well, we have the right to nuke you. And that then puts, as far as I'm concerned, the entire continent of Europe at risk. That is very dangerous. That's why I think, I think enough people have died, enough money has been spent, and I would like to see, I don't want to see any lives lost, and I hope President Trump can assist with Vladimir Putin. Not a fan of him. I think he never should have invaded Ukraine to begin with. I think your people have fought valiantly, but how many more people are going to die, and how much more damage, infrastructure damage, is going to occur?
I didn't hear everything, but I will try to answer. Before the big-scale invasion, I was personally asking President Biden and his team, the State Department, we were contacting everyone in the White House. We were saying the most effective sanctions will be preventive. Most important response is preventive action. So give us weapons now. And they were saying, we will give you weapons if they invade. And I was saying, do everything you can now. And that may prevent, that may stop his coming invasion. Parallel with that, I was asking the European Union countries, and they could not do it without approval of the United States. So they always look at the leader, the United States, as the leader. So during the big invasion, Ukrainians were left on their own, and we were fighting on our own.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.